Hi, this is Steve Curtis of Columbus Global. I'm the Customer Experience Lead. Today we're going to be focusing in on Connected Field Service, and this webinar is talking about part one of Connected Field Service, which is the ability to create cases and work orders from IoT messages coming through. So just a little bit of reiteration on what's in field service. So if you look at field service from Microsoft Dynamics 365, it includes all the way from the customer view, a customer-centric experience, going through to the ability to connect through to IoT devices, receiving messages in automatically, being able to deploy the work orders out to the technicians via mobile applications, being able to manage the remote inventory, the customer assets that the customers have from Dynamics 365 Field Service, being able to manage the scheduling and the dispatch of the engineers relative to the work orders and the amount of work that's available to them, and then being able to manage service agreements. These could be for large-scale, discrete pieces of work where there's scheduled field service against that asset that the customer may have. And then just having a little bit of a look on PowerPoint at the difference between the way that the workflows can trigger the processes. If you think about an IoT-enabled device, which is over on the left-hand side, that IoT-enabled device could be any number of physical devices that there are in the workplace. Recently, I've seen a situation where a company had ice cream chiller cabinets, and those chiller cabinets had temperature sensors that would automatically alert the company if there was any impending failure on the chiller cabinet. I've seen planes going across the Atlantic where the engines themselves are sending IoT information constantly down to the ground, and those are being interpreted automatically, and then engineers are being deployed as necessary. So if you think about it, an IoT enabled device could have many different IoT sensors. They could have one reading temperatures, they could have one reading humidity levels, and they could have one reading pressure levels. Now, if you think about it, if the reading type is one of those that's coming through, you could have different process flows that are enabled with different rules based upon those different IoT sensors and the different readings. So you can read the temperature, you can read the humidity, you can read the pressure, and then run a process relative to that particular reading to make a decision automatically. And these decisions can be automated or manual. So if we look into that in a little bit more detail, let's say in this situation, we've got a temperature alert, and that temperature anomaly comes through in an IoT, via an IoT message. And then we make decisions in the workflow. So, for instance, in this situation, if the temperature alert is between 70 and 85 degrees, we can do an automated reset. We can send a command back to the IoT device to do a reset and see if that fixes the problem. Now, if the temperature alert is between 86 and 100 degrees, what we may want to do is have a little bit of a manual review of this. So we may want to create a case, have a look at that case, then have the service technician decide that maybe this does need some local field engineer expertise, and so generate the work order, schedule that, and then service and complete. But if the temperature is above 100 degrees, maybe this is enough of a problem for us to just go directly to generating a work order, scheduling that, and servicing it and completing it. And that means that you get the service done much quicker if you know that there's definitely a problem. Now, I've seen this in many organizations where they want a little bit of manual intervention at that break point where it could be a problem or it could not be a problem. And they want to have complete automated intervention as quick as possible if there's definitely an impending failure. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move into demonstration mode. So I'm going to show you connected field service in action and the way in which you can take an IoT message or a set of IoT messages and then generate a case and then generate a work order from that IoT anomaly. We're now in Dynamics 365 Connected Field Service, and as you can see, I'm in the dashboard area. Over on the left-hand side of the dashboard area, if I fold this down just for a minute, you can see that we've got the active IoT alerts by month and by account. We can drop that down. We can see different types of IoT alert coming through. We can see the number of active IoT alerts that are coming through month by month and day by day. And then down here we can see, and this is clickable, individual IoT alerts that we're getting through, and any work orders that have been created automatically from IoT alerts that have been coming through. Now, this is a number of different dashboards that are available in Connected Field Service for us to be able to use. And I can also create my own dashboards as needed. So this is very configurable and allows me to start drilling in as necessary into these different IoT alerts. Now, you notice each of these, I can take the actual IoT alert chart and I can expand the view of this, and indeed at each of these different ones I can drill down if I want to into those different attributes. I can also go against each of these different charts on the dashboard and I can view the individual records that are making up the chart itself. So I can see the IoT alerts themselves alongside the chart if I want to. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move into the actual list of IoT alerts that are coming through, and what we can see is this system is triggering literally every 10 seconds. Now you could have a situation where maybe it triggers once a minute, once an hour. That's completely configurable for you, and a lot of this work is done in Azure and set up automatically. Microsoft have a product called IoT Central, and that manages the IoT alerts that are coming through. But we're going to pick this one for our client Neogener, and we've got an automated lift which has gone wrong. It's got a temperature anomaly on that lift. And if we look at the details of the IoT alert, you can see that we've got a process flow across the top for our connected field service that allows us to potentially intervene at this point, create the case, create the work order, and then go through to scheduling the work order for the remote engineer to be able to work on this. Now we can immediately see the temperature settings, and in this situation it has actually fluctuated and gone above 100 degrees and close to 110 degrees. So there is definitely a problem with this. And if we want to, we can look at the raw root of the data that's on here, the alert data that's coming through. That's part of the JSON package that's coming through from the IoT device, and we can see what customer asset is involved. So if I now go through and say, okay, I am going to create a case for this, the first thing that we can do, let's pin the business process over here, go to the next stage, and what we're going to do is create a case automatically from this IoT alert. Now, there's only a few things I need to fill in on here. Again, this is completely configurable, but in my situation, I know this is to do with my home products, and it's a duo lift in terms of the subject. And that really, at this point, is all I need to fill in. I could put some more description for the case itself, but let's go in and we'll save and close, and that will create the case and then move me automatically from the IoT alert to the created case, so that now as a caseworker I can start working on that case itself. So you can start to see in here it's starting to fill out the details. I've got a timeline where if I want to, I can start to contact the customer maybe. I could record phone calls, emails. I could set up tasks and jobs to do with the review of this particular case, and maybe then to do with the scheduling. But we're going to cover scheduling later to get a remote engineer out. For now, we're just going to focus on the creation of the case and then the creation of the work order. Now, some of the other details that we've got in here, we can see our customer details, Neogener over at 24 Queens Road. We can see he's had a number of problems with this particular device. And then over on the left-hand side, you can see that we've automatically generated the case number for the customer. The origin is an IoT device. It's on the product, which is a Duo Classic Home Lift. It's a warning from an IoT alert where there's a temperature over 40 degrees. And then the other type of things that we can see on this is we can start to have a look, for instance, in field service. It's recording that the incident type is a temperature failure on a Duo cabinet for this particular customer asset. Now, the next step that we will want to do is, assuming that we decide, yeah, we need to send a remote engineer out for this particular case, again, we'll take the business process and use that to guide us through this. We've been active for eight minutes, and in terms of create case, we've been active for 1 minute with this. We'll go to the next stage, and that will command us and help us to create a work order. So what we're now going to do is create a work order, and I'm going to put temperature failure. Don't need to do this if I don't want to. Need to send an engineer out for this one. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure highlight on the primary incident type. We know that this is a failure with a Duo cabinet. So if we list down, you can see the first one in here is Duo cabinet temperature failure. That then says, what's the incident description, and that starts to allocate what the incident estimated duration for the work is and the work order type. So automatically it's filling all these details in for me. It's set this as a high priority, and we're quite happy now to save and close that new work order that is being created for us. So now we've got the work order in front of us. The next stage on this work order will be to schedule the work order so that the relevant remote engineer can do that work. Now, there's a number of ways of doing that scheduling, and that's going to be part of our second webinar today. So we're going to go through the scheduling of that work order with you as part 2. Just to highlight on the work order that's been created, I'd like to go through the service tasks that are involved. So we said that there was an incident type that was allocated on this, and you can see that automatically via the incident type, it shows me the tasks. So we're going to basically have to isolate the power, remove the control panel, do a conductor test, perform the fix, and then get the customer sign off. And the total time for this, we've got half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours in total. This is going to consume potentially some bearings, and we need labor, we need level 20 of labor to be able to actually be able to do this work. So we'll cover that off in a little bit more detail when we do the scheduling piece. So to summarize, today we've looked at this middle chart here, where what we've done is we've taken an IoT alert, and out of that we have manually, with help from the system, created a case, done some troubleshooting on that case, and then generated the work order automatically. The next webinar will look at the scheduling, and then the final webinar of the 3 will look at the remote engineer servicing and completing the generated work order. In summary, if you look at connected field service, the IoT technology can increase worker productivity by an average of 12%, and the technician productivity can go up by an average of 25% with connected field service. And if you look at the statistics on the other side, I would recommend moving to a preventative maintenance program, which again can generate average savings of over 12%. And these are per the Aberdeen Group, per surveys of some of the customers that we've seen, and using about 270 field service software implementation with information from Gartner Group garnered out of that. So thanks for your time today. This was Steve Curtis, Customer Experience Lead for Columbus Global.